And another horror story, I was doing a wedding and I used to do bill in kiwi, bill in lemon, bill in kiwi, whatever I fancied doing at the time. I bought myself a couple of knives to do it, and I found these really nice knives that were foldable and everything, like pen knives, look really nice. But what I did was I gave my father-in-law one to dull down the blade so it wasn't too sharp. It was sharp enough to cut through, but he would dull it down for me. And one day I went into my close-up case and the knife wasn't there. So I opened the drawer where I had my stuff, saw the knife, grabbed it, put it in my bag with the kiwis and everything else, went to the wedding, at the table, got the kiwi's on the table, should I say, at the beginning of the routine, borrowed the bill vanishes, get on with my act, now pick up the kiwi at the end, get the knife out. And as I've gone to cut the kiwi, I got the knife that hadn't been dulled down and it sliced through the kiwi and into my finger.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks SOS. This is our second episode of this, and I'm really excited for this series because it's kind of like a little experiment, because we've put this idea to everyone that you have to perform these 8 tricks for the rest of your life, and these are the ultimate tricks. But maybe a couple of years on, does that really hold true? Is this really your ultimate list? Or do things change? Maybe your circumstance change and you have to perform in different venues and different environments, which then will ultimately change that list, and there's not really much you can do about it. So I think this is going to be a really interesting series where we can determine whether people are actually sticking to this list or, what's changed. Now, today's guest is someone that we had on, I think it was maybe the second or third episode that we did, and he will love me saying this. He is still the most listened to episode. Now, I will caveat that by saying that is excluding YouTube watches. So if we include YouTube watches, then Darren and I think Nick Muhammad would be the first two. But in terms of our direct downloads from all streaming sites, he is still very, very much number one. Of course, he is the founder of Alakazam Magic, the whole reason that we're all here listening to this. In fact, it is Peter Nardi. Hello, Pete.
Hello. I will say, old DB, Darren Brown, had an unfair advantage because we weren't doing it on YouTube.
So, yeah.
When I did it.
That's very true. Darren, if you're listening, Pete has got beef with you for that. So there we go. But yeah, we're very excited because you actually didn't have one of the choices. We introduced something after your recording. So in year 2, we included the banishment. So we don't actually have your banishment. And I've got your list here. So your original list from a while ago. And I've spoken to you since. And I know that you mentioned to me maybe 1 or 2 of these items would potentially change as well. So it's going to be interesting to see where you go with it.
Well, I can pretty much have a guess of what I would have chosen for my first list, but I do need reminding.
Okay. Well, let's go through it then. So what ones do you think you remember?
I would say I probably had the horizontal card rise.
You did have the horizontal card rise. That is on there.
E2.
You did have E2.
Sharpie Through Card.
You did not have Sharpie Through Card.
Oh. No. Knock 'em Dead?
You did not have Knock Them Dead.
Wow, you're going to have to remind me then.
So I think that shows us where we're going to go. So obviously our guests have been marooned on this island for 2 years now. So that means we need to meet up with them. They've sent out the SOS call. They've drawn it in rocks on the sand. So we're going to go and save them. That means we're going to give them some extra choices. Now, because Pete wasn't in the second year, that means he gets his banishment. So we're going to allow him to banish something. Our second thing that we're going to allow him is to have a guest on the island. Like I said, he's been there 2 years. He needs someone with him. The guest can be from the past. They can be dead, or they can be currently here and alive. It's up to our guests. He also has a memory, so a standout memory from his career that he gets to give him a bit of a boost, a bit of a morale boost. There's a horror story which he can get rid of. So this horror story, we're going to put it into a bottle, throw it out at sea, and it's going to drift away. And finally, a show. And what we mean by this, it could be a performance that he never got the chance to see in person, or one that he did see that he wants to see again. Whatever that is, it's up to him. And of course, he can switch out any of his original lists. So we'll go through his original list and see which ones he would keep, which ones he would get rid of. So let's start with those two that you just spoke about, Pete. Let's start with the horizontal card rise. So are we going to keep that, or are we going to oust it?
I think I'm going to keep it. I still think it's such a beautiful piece of magic.
And this is the one that made Emilio's knees go wobbly.
It literally did. When I performed it on him, which was a couple of years ago, I think, those were his words. Uncle, my knees trembled.
But it's true. It's such a wonderful trick. And I think it's the props themselves look the part as well. And I know that you've had ideas on advancing this plot as well.
Yeah, it's something that I'm looking at. The one I've got, I love. It's very vintage looking, and the presentation that I've built around it is it fits the prop. So it's about being a kid, seeing a magician perform this trick, and over the years, I asked loads of magicians if they knew of this trick, and no one knew of it. Until I met this one guy who said, I know who does that trick. He's the only one that does it. I got to meet the guy. He was very old at the time, and he left it to me in his will, and I'm the only person he's taught to do it. So that's my presentation. But I also think it would be great if I could do this exact same effect, but make it look like I'm just picking up objects on the table, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I am looking at ways to do it. But I think that would definitely stay in. It's something I've loved from the very first moment I saw it. I think it's extremely magical. The version I have, which is the latest Viking version or Collector's Workshop version, works beautifully, looks beautiful, and I just think it's really magical. It's a lovely production of two selected cards, and the handling is very fair as well, you know. Yeah, I think it's pretty much perfect as a card routine, and because of what it is, I think you could probably do it on a small stage as well. Beautiful parlour, but I do think it would work. As long as they could see the cards, you could do it.
Well, one thing that we didn't do early on in the podcast as well, which I've sort of gotten used to now that we've got the format sorted, is just kind of working out things about your list. So I've only just really looked through it, and I think it's the only stage/parlour trick in your list. It was the only one that you had. I would argue maybe E2 could be a parlour trick.
Didn't I have the Sophie trick?
You did not have the Sophie trick either.
Wow.
So let's go on to that one then. Extractor. Are we keeping Extractor, or are we ousting it?
I think I've got to keep Extractor, because the Extractor is a utility. and it will allow me to perform miracles. So I think I need to keep the extractor. There's so many things I can do with it, and so many uses of it. I know it pretty much allows for two things. That's it. But with those two things, where you go with it is unlimited. So, yeah, I think Extractor would have to stay in.
Okay, so Extractor staying with you. Now, I did just say that horizontal card rise was the only parlor trick. I think in terms of a trick that's built for parlor, that's accurate. But I do think Extractor can be used parlor as well. I think that all day long could be used parlor, as well as the next one that was on your list, which was iChange. Are we keeping iChange or are we ousting it?
Right, you got me thinking now, because I've got to keep it. I've got to keep iChange. Yeah, I can't see how I could get rid of it. Because
we should have just given you a list of 20 at this point, because I can see you've just mentioned 3 others.
The thing is, though, when you're talking about these effects like iChange, it's a plot that I've always loved, and I don't like saying this, but to me, I think iChange is the best version of this plot I've ever seen, and that's, I don't like saying it because I created it, but I honestly do. It's so clean. It's so baffling.
It's about the ease of it as well, because I've seen versions of this which are really knuckle busting. There's a lot going on in terms of misdirection and reloading. And I remember this coming out before I worked for Alakazam. Obviously, I've been a massive Alakazam fan my whole life. And I remember buying this and I remember performing it and being absolutely amazed by how much you're getting from so little.
Yeah.
It's so baffling to watch.
I'm probably going to repeat exactly what I said when we first recorded this podcast. iChange was an effect that I worked on and off for probably 15 to 20 years. So I used to perform an interchange plot. The one I performed, I reverse engineered by watching a magician do it on telly. So I knew there were Elmsley counts in it. I knew there were palms into my pocket, palms out of my pocket, and everything else. And I reversed engineered what I believed was going on because I loved the routine. That was the first time I'd ever seen this plot. And I really loved it. And for years, I was just thinking there's got to be an easier way. There's got to be an easier way. Not only easier, but something that appears cleaner. Something that appears as if you're not doing anything and the magic's happening. And it was one of those tricks that I kept going back to the drawing board. So even though I say it probably took 20 years to create, that's not 20 years of working on it every day. That's working on it, putting it on the shelf, finding it again a year and a half later, putting in a couple of days worth of thought into it, putting it back on the shelf because I couldn't get any further, and then a few years later picking it up again. But the actual period was about 20 odd years. And I remember one day sitting in the shop, it was a Saturday, and I was here with Chris Harding that worked with me at the time. And I spoke to him about the plot. And as I was talking to him, the idea for the gimmicks just came into my head. And Chris was quite arts and craftsy, and he made me, I will say it was a very basic set of gimmicks. I mean, there was no peeling cards or anything. It was literally chopping cards and sticking. So some of the cards were, 2 cards thick and everything else. But with that set of gimmicks, I worked out the routine and the flow of the routine. And it was one of those happy coincidences, whereas what I had to do to present the effect meant the routine had to follow a certain direction. And luckily, that direction became the perfect routine that made it so clean at the end. Do you know what I mean? That was the only avenue I could have went down with it. Maybe just tweaking the order in which the cards went in the pockets. But because of what I wanted to achieve, the routine sort of worked itself out, if that makes sense. So everything just fell into place, and it's still an effect I love today. I think it's, if I was to, I used to perform it close up, but for me, it's, if I was to perform it now, it's that parlour thing. I'll tell you what, New Year's Eve, when I was doing that restaurant for Harry, I told you there was this really big table. A lot of tables were tables of 2 or 4, but there was this really big table that were just really loud, really enjoying it, kept calling me over. That's the table I would have done it for. You know, it's yeah, I just think it's so magical. So yeah, I would have to leave that in, I think.
Okay, so iChange is going with you. Let's go on to the next one. So you had Predator Wallet.
Love the Predator Wallet. But I tell you what, I'm going to take the Predator Wallet out. Not because I like it any less. But I'll be honest with you, I haven't performed the Predator Wallet in years. But saying that, you'll know this, Jamie. Me and Jenny tidied my magic room the other day.
Jenny tidied your magic room the other day.
Right, yeah. Jenny tidied my magic room the other day. Now, one thing that Jenny's good at is if I tidy anything, I'm literally just moving stuff. I don't tidy it, I just move stuff. And I never look through. One thing that I hate doing is looking through boxes. I can't stand it. But Jenny's very good. When she's tidy, she goes, look through that box, because what you don't want, we're going to throw away. And while looking through one of the boxes, I found my Predator. So I am going to relearn it. But so it may well be back in when we record Desert Island, You've Been Saved, or whatever it's going to be called. But I'm going to take it out and I am going to replace it. Okay, I think I am going to replace it with Sharpie Through Card. And I would say it probably wasn't in my original list because, one, we couldn't get them made anymore. And two, I no longer had one. Since I've got it back, it lives in my deck. And I start every card performance with Sharpie Through Card. And once again, this has taken me years, and it's no great shakes or anything, but I just come up with this thing where I just say, I'm going to show you something to start with. It's not a magic trick, it's an optical illusion. Now, for some of you, this might look pretty good. For the rest of you, probably won't look that good if you're at the wrong angle. But I'm going to take this pen and I'm going to push it through your chosen card. I think this is the angle here. And then I push the pen through. Now everyone reacts, right? But I've just said it's a optical illusion. So I still present it as an optical illusion. And I say, but if you hold on to the pen, if you have a look, there is no hole. There's nothing wrong with a pen. But the other thing is, at the end of my set, I finish with, you know, at the beginning I told you I was going to show you an optical illusion. And then I wrap up every effect I did as being an optical illusion, because none of it could have happened because there was never a deck of cards. And that brings me on to my final thing. So it just fits so well in my routine. It lives in my deck, never fails to get a killer reaction, and it's so easy to do. So Predator is being replaced with STC.
Well, I think that's a great choice. I remember, again, when STC come about, and, I mean, growing up, obviously, Blaine was on TV, and you had Cigarette Through Coin, and that blew up the industry. Everyone wanted one of them, and everyone was producing them. And then I think there was like an advancement on the method where you had like the Cigarette Through £1, which was a slightly different method. You could basically show both sides of the coin at that point, which was cool. And then they brought out Cigarette Through Card, which was a big thing. But obviously no one smoked, so it felt like a really bizarre thing, especially me being a kid. I'm not going to borrow a cigarette and push it through a card. It's bizarre. It's just a pen that everyone has on them, a card that you can have selected. It makes absolute sense. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, I was a performer of Cigarette Through Card because, I was a smoker. I used to go to gigs where, everyone used to smoke indoors and everything else. And I used to, take their cigarette, push it through a card. And the Cigarette Through Card was Rob Bromley's. I did that for years. That was a main part of my close-up. When you hear people go, oh, I saw you years ago, you did this. That is still something that people say to me. You took my cigarette and you pushed it through my card. It's still one of those things people remember me by. And I remember having a conversation with Rob because Rob stopped making Cigarette Through Cards because no one was smoking anymore. I stopped performing it because you couldn't perform it anymore because no one was smoking. So I remember speaking to Rob, and this was quite a few years after Cigarette Through Card. And I said, Rob, can you make me a Cigarette Through Card, but the size of a Sharpie? And he said, well, I'll give it a go. It's a different size to a cigarette and everything else, but I'll give it a go. And he made it. And it works beautifully. And one of the reasons it works beautifully, for one, like you said, we've all got a Sharpie on us, so it makes sense. But the second thing is a Sharpie is tapered. Now, with the Cigarette Through Card, you had to put the cigarette onto the card, you locate the hole, and you would push the cigarette through. You would have to push it through. It was very tight on that hole. Looked beautiful, worked well. The nice thing about the Sharpie is because the Sharpie is narrower at the bottom end, you can literally stab the card, the pen into the card without even really looking, because the actual hole is a lot bigger than the base of the pen because the hole is cut to the center size of the Sharpie. So you're putting the small end of the Sharpie into quite a bit bigger hole, but then the pen just travels through until it naturally stops. So in my mind, I think Sharpie Through Card, from a performer's point of view, I feel is better than Cigarette Through. Cigarette Through is genius. The method's the same. All credit to Rob Bromley. And even with Sharpie Through Card, it's Rob Bromley's genius. I had the idea of the Sharpie Through Card, but without Rob's gimmick, that would never have existed. So, it is Rob's the big brains behind that. He created the gimmick that was so beautiful. Sharpie Through Card goes in, Predator comes out.
Okay, so that's our first substitution. Sharpie Through Cards going to your island. Let's move on to your next choice. So you had fourth dimensional telepathy.
I'm going to take that out.
Poor Bob Cassidy. What would you switch it with?
Right. So once again, I am going to say I love fourth dimension. Oh, am I going to take it out? Oh, I don't know if I can take it out. Do you know what? I'll tell you what, Jamie, I've been on the island for a long time. I've performed it to death. I think I can switch it up.
All right. What are you going to switch it for?
But what do I replace it with?
Well, I mean, earlier on you mentioned the Sophie trick, and I know that that's
Oh.
one of your big loves.
Sophie trick is one of my all-time favourites. I remember the first time I saw Andy Nyman do that effect, and it blew me away. Not only the effect, but it's Andy, isn't it? It's the presentation, it's the story, because the actual gimmick itself is an old Peter Jeffries free card Monte. That's what it is. But what Andy did was he purchased one and he created something that was unique to him. And it was the routine I fell in love with, Andy's routine. You know, it had so much meaning. It was comedic in the right places. It's baffling. So it could be the Sophie trick, or it could be colour psychology. It's going to be a mentalism piece. I'm going to say it's the Sophie trick. I'm going to replace it with a Sophie trick.
I will say as well, this is just so that people know how much Pete likes it. You showed it to me in your living room about, I don't know now, maybe 8 years ago it would have been.
Yeah.
And ever since then, there's been a myriad of different shows that you've tried to put it into. I think, did the guys do it? Did 4MG do a version of it as well?
4MG did it. They not on BGT, but in their stage show, and it was presented as Harry's crush on Amanda Holden. But we've presented it in so many ways. I mean, I was thinking of literally last night a presentation for it, but I performed the free card Monte with it, like as a free card Monte. I was going to do it at Holly's wedding, if you remember rightly.
Yeah, because we were going to make the gimmicks for it. Yep.
Yeah, and it was only because of the seating arrangement at the wedding that I thought this isn't going to play. Not everyone's going to be able to see it. They've got to really pay attention to what's going on. So it just didn't suit the venue. But yeah, it is something. I think that the prop looks innocent. I think the mind reading that happens in there is direct. And because there's a few lines of Andy's that really make it for me. And I will say this was the Sophie trick was released in a limited edition by Andy Nyman and Pro Mystic. So I ended up buying the very first one that they produced. And I said to Andy at the time I was buying it, I said, I'm only going to buy this if we also get the rights to perform your routine. Because there's a couple of lines that Andy has in there that make the routine for me. So, yeah, you do get the rights. I don't perform Andy's routine, but I do use a few of the lines from there, which are incredibly brilliant. Simple, and if I said them now, that would mean nothing, but during the routine, they're fantastic. Yeah, so Sophie trick's in.
Great. So the Sophie trick is going with you. That's our second substitution. So you've got 3 more that you can potentially swap out. So the next one you took with you was Imagine.
Imagine I would probably leave in. Yeah, I'd probably leave that in. That's so much magic for so little work, and we forget the power that something like a mental photography, something very, very simple, has on a lay spectator. Now, I perform it, so for anyone that doesn't know, Imagine it is pretty much like a mental photography, but on steroids. You know, it turns into a rainbow deck. You can then read their mind, then it goes blank again. I perform it where I start with it already printed. So as far as they're concerned, it's a very special deck of cards. Each card comes from a different deck. I start showing loads of backs, loads of faces. So we show all that. Then I do a mind reading bit, and I read sort of 3 or 4 people's minds. and then we put a card on their hand, the face of the card goes blank, and then the whole deck goes blank. And I do that in the shop all the time. I demo it all the time. And there was three magicians who have been in magic for a long time. We're not talking about hobbyists. I performed the magic on them, and one of them believed I'd done 2 deck switches during the routine. That's how clean it looks. It's brilliant. So yeah, for me, Imagine, I think we have to stay in. I think it's super powerful.
Okay, so Imagine staying with you. On to the next one, which you had Mirage Coin Set.
Yep, staying in.
You mentioned a specific routine.
International Reverse Matrix.
That was the one. Is that the trick that you're sticking with from that?
Yep. Yeah, I mean, there's so many. I would do my coins to pocket. I'll do my coins to cup. But Craig's International Reverse Matrix, I think, is just a beautiful effect. I think it's lovely. When we filmed the Mirage Coin Set, I wasn't a coin guy. I done coins across, I done hopping halves, couple of things with a coin unique. But when I first saw Craig do the reverse matrix, my first thoughts were, I could never do that. I just wouldn't have the time to practice it, wouldn't have the time to do this, wouldn't have to say all excuses why I wouldn't do it. And then when I was editing the video for the Mirage Coin Set, as you know, Jamie, if we're releasing the product, we've got to be able to dem something from it. So even though there's 30 effects on there, I said, right, as I go through editing, I'm going to make a list of 4 or 5 of those effects that I want to learn. So when we dem it, I know them. And I think if you get 4 or 5 effects out of that, you've got your money's worth. I would have paid, if I went up to Craig at a convention and he demonstrated that trick and it cost the price of the Mirage Coin Set, you only learned that trick. If he could have persuaded me I could do it, I would have parted with my money. That's how much I love the effect. But it's so simple to do and so deceptive when you watch it. And it's beautiful. I think it's a beautiful routine. I do it with train tickets. So I had some custom train tickets printed on poker size stock. And my whole presentation is, I want you to imagine these coins are trains. They're all going to join together in the main station. It's the main station. But then that brings me on to my kicker of why the coins jump back. Because then I look down as if the last one's supposed to have gone and it hasn't gone. And then I look down and I go, these are return tickets. And just that little thing now makes sense why the coins have gone back, rather than just going, and they've jumped back again. Why? Whereas by going their return tickets, it's a stupid, cheesy thing, but it makes the kickback make sense.
Okay, so we're taking Mirage Coin Set. It's the only coin trick that you've got in your set as well. And it also means that you've only got one trick that you could potentially swap out for now. And I've never been devil's advocate at this part, but I don't think you're going to switch out for this one. I think it's going to stay. And that is the Stealth Assassin.
Yeah, that's got to stay.
I would have been surprised if that one come out because, when I think about you as a creator, the Stealth Assassin is probably the number one trick that still comes to mind. I think it's so synonymous with you and your legacy and Alakazam's legacy as well. I think we spoke about it on your original podcast that mentalism wallets weren't really a thing before the Stealth Assassin. It was the Mind Spy.
The Mind Spy.
That was it. Yeah.
Changed it, and the Assassin was basically an offshoot of that because the Mind Spy was a larger wallet, and I got really known for doing mind reading, and the problem I had was when I was out casually, the Mind Spy was too big to look natural. It was fine in a suit jacket, when I'm doing stand-up or doing close-up at a gig or something like that. But when you're out casually, it was too big. It weren't a prop you would carry casually. That's why I actually created the assassin, the stealth assassin, and the stealth. It was the stealth. Sorry. Yeah, I created the stealth wallet, and then Mark Spellman had the idea of putting in the SUC side, which made it the stealth assassin. So the assassin is sort of a combination of my stealth and Mark's thinking on the stealth, and Mark's tweaks on that. So and the other good thing about having the stealth assassin, it's a 20-minute act using normal bits that are inside the wallet. You can play devil's advocate as much as you like. Give me one routine. I'll tell you what you want to hear. I'll do 20 routines with it. You're not on the island. I don't care.
And you are the boss, so I have no legs to stand on.
If it was one routine, if I could still do it, it would be Hollywood or Bust by Colin Miller.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I don't really perform it much anymore. Hardly ever now. But I've sort of built it in a little bit to my Cash Cabaret routine. So I still have the sort of celebrity reveal, but I built into Cash Cabaret now.
Amazing. So we only had 2 substitutions. So we've now got the Sophie trick and Sharpie Through Card. You did also have a book and an item. You can switch either of these out if you want. The book you went for was the magic menu and your item was music. Would you like to switch either of those out?
Yes.
Oh, what are we going to switch out?
I am going to switch out the book.
Okay, what for?
Because I don't want it anymore. For a Bob Cassidy book.
Oh, which one?
It could be any of them. They're all good. Any Bob Cassidy book. They're all great. I love Bob Cassidy.
Yeah, I think I would put his first book up. I don't actually own his second. I'm going to pick up his second that someone was scouting out for because they're very hard to come by.
The first one's better.
You got Fourth Dimensional Telepathy, the Name Place, all of Chronologue, all of the Cassidy classics are in that first book.
Yeah, and I think that's why I like it. So I will still have Fourth Dimension Telepathy, Jamie, because it's in the book.
And are you going to change out your item or are you going to keep music?
I would probably... Have I got a Sharpie?
I'll give you a Sharpie for Sharpie Through Card because it's going to be a bit rubbish otherwise.
I probably would take my turntables and my music.
Okay, all right. So we're still having a party on Pete's Island.
The news is out. The 1914 has found a new home. We are proud to announce that Alakazam Magic are now the proud custodians of the 1914. What does this mean for you? Simply put, everything you love stays exactly where it belongs. The aesthetic, the quality, the philosophy. The website remains unchanged. Your instructional content is safe. The classics that defined the 1914 will be restocked and made available once again. And with our industry-leading infrastructure and customer service behind the scenes, the future is stronger than ever. But this isn't just about preservation. Work has already begun on a series of new 1914 releases, projects that have been quietly evolving for years and are finally ready to see the light of day. This is the next chapter, built on respect for the past, driven by belief in the future. Thank you for your continued support. Thank you for coming along with us on this journey. We are the new 1914.
Okay, so one thing that you didn't have is your banishment? So, Pete, I want you to imagine that you're going to dig a big sandy hole. You're going to throw something from the industry inside, and we're going to bury it, never to be seen again. What is your banishment?
I would say everyone says egos, magicians' egos and stuff like that. I'm not going to say that, even though we all know they should go. I'm going to say magician's guilt. Right? And what I mean by that is not so much, well, no, it is that. It's that thing where everyone thinks everything has to be justified. If you want to do an effect, you don't have to justify everything, you know. It is what it is. I mean, wow is such an incredible trick. And people go, oh my God, it's so good. But I would never do it, because what is it? It doesn't matter what it is. I'm just going to put this card in here so I can't do any sleight of hand. You don't have to, you don't have to explain everything away. Not everything has to have a 20-minute backstory of why it exists. It's, I've got a box. We're going to put your ring inside that box. You know, that's all I have to tell them. I don't have to tell them why I'm carrying this box or anything else. It doesn't matter. It's about the effect. And I'm a big lover of props. I like seeing things. I do like, I love people that can do, you know, serious sleight of hand and nothing's used. But it doesn't offend me if I see a nest of boxes. It doesn't offend me if I see a weird looking prop. I think it's quite interesting. I think it's quite intriguing to have something that you can, you know, I found this in an old antique shop. Now, bearing in mind, you can use that one line for pretty much 99.9% of anything you're going to perform. I was walking down the street. There was a really weird shop. It sold one of these. What is it? I don't know. But you can put things in it. You know, it's... So I would say magician's guilt, because I've had this conversation so many times with magicians, and you do feel that I think a lot of people suffer this, and I don't want this to sound rude, but I think the people that do suffer with this are probably not performers. And I think they're probably showing family that do want to question everything. Because you'll know this, Jamie, as a performer, if you go out, they don't know you. They don't know what you do. And if I come up with a presentation for something, I could turn around and go, do you know what? I collect things to do with Mickey Mouse. That's why I got this box. They don't know I don't. You know, I'll just come out with anything I want to come out with. They'll believe it. And I think a lot of people that need to justify anything or go, oh, I couldn't do that because they'll want to grab at that or they'll want to do this. I don't think they're performers. I think they're people that do it at home and to friends. And unfortunately, when you do it at home and to friends, they are pretty much the hardest audience. You know? So for me, it will be magician's guilt. I would hope that all magicians would have the confidence to perform an effect no matter what it used. If they love the effect, don't be put off because the prop looks a bit weird, you know?
Yep. I think you're on the money. I think that there's like a magician's logic to things, where I think magicians think about things differently because our brains are attuned that way. That's just how we think. We think differently. But I do think that we over-analyze things. And one of my bugbears in our industry, again, without upsetting anyone, is sometimes theory for theory's sake. It's the idea, there's a lot of thought experiments that go on in magic where we think what would happen with this and what would happen with that, when in actuality we don't need to be thinking about any of that. We just need to go out and try it, And a lot of the time, magicians who don't like a method will think that it doesn't work, so they automatically explain the method away, just because they don't like it when, you know, it will work. I had a chat with a friend a few weeks ago about I think it's the Divernon trick, where they it's completely hands off. I think you showed it to me, and they pick a card, put it on top, cut the cards, turn them face up, cut.
Oh, the lazy man's card trick.
That's the one.
Yeah.
And he didn't like the method and thought that maybe it would be too obvious. So he was offsetting it by 6, I think. And then when I kind of said, well, I've performed this a lot of times, it was very much explained away as well. Oh, they were just being nice. There was no way that they would have fallen for it, which is there's no logic there. That's just I don't think it will work, but it doesn't mean it won't work.
No. And the other thing is, as well, I think a lot of people that think like that probably subconsciously perform to either people that want to challenge them, or people that, or maybe they're putting it across as a challenge, as a look how smart I am. Going back, I mean, I don't perform that much anymore, but I did do that gig New Year's Eve. I'm going to talk about it again because there was, out of all the tables I did, there was probably 2 tables with the alpha males on them. Within a trick, they're on your side, you know. But if you try to, you're always going to try and outsmart them because you want to fool them, but you don't want them to feel as if you're trying to outsmart them, if that makes sense. I'm not going to, all right, mate, well, tell me how I do this then. As soon as you've done that, you've sort of lost. And I think when people go, oh, they're just being nice, I think it's because they have probably experienced those alpha males that will just start shooting out methods. Right or wrong, they'll just go, oh, you got an extra deck in your shoe. It's not going to help me, but they're just shooting out methods. And once you start performing, you learn how to deal with those sort of people, and it doesn't throw you off. But the worst thing you can do is be challenged, or challenge them. But going back to that lazy man's card trick, no one is ever going to relate that card to their card's position in the deck. Yeah. No one. There's no way. Magicians don't. Lay people aren't, because you're not looking for it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
It's yeah.
But going back to when I said I think magicians see things differently, I think you're right. There's it's either you're challenged and then that affects the way that you perform, and that's the magician's guilt coming in. But it's also like, if I took my car to a mechanic and there's something wrong, he's going to start that car up and hear a rattle in it or hear something in it and know instantly what it is. But because I'm not a mechanic, I don't know what to look out for. But with magic, the relation to that card, we can see that. It's glaringly obvious to us because we are in that world. We know what's going on. But to the untrained eye, no one's going to create that relation. That's the magician's logic there. We have to remember, we see things differently, we process things differently, we understand things differently, in the same way that a mechanic or a plumber or anyone else is great at what they do.
I think the other thing, and I suffered from this for a while, is we tend to, because we know how something's done, we see that as the effect being transparent. And that's not the case, because if you want to go and entertain and fool lay people, just keep it simple, and that will fool them because they don't know what we know. I remember years ago, working on a TV show, and we had the brainstorming session. We all brought in some tricks, and I brought in the one. So I said to the producers of the show, has anyone got any change on them? They all threw their change on a tray. I wrote something down on a business card, put it down, name heads or tails. Heads, okay. We're going to keep all the heads, shake them up, whatever kinds of tails, take them away. We're going to keep doing it till we're left with one coin. They're left with one coin. Turn over my prediction. I predicted the coin and the date on that coin, right? They turned around and went, oh my God, that is no idea. How can you predict such a thing? That's incredible. You must really be able to read our minds. You must be able to do this. You must be able to do that. Now, because of the situation I'm in, you've got to explain the trick. Because they're producers, you need it for this show. So I explained the trick, and they went, it's a bit obvious, isn't it? But that's it. Once you know, we all think it's obvious. And if you're not an experienced performer, that now makes you scared because you know how it's done. You know, and I have it, we still have it in the shop. People come in, show them a trick. Oh, that's great. Show me how it's done. I show them and they go, oh, it's a bit obvious, isn't it? And it's like, well, no, it just fooled you. But now they know, they're going, oh, other people are going to know that. People are going to know that. And it's that sort of magician's skill that I think if we could banish that from all magicians, I think a lot of magicians, especially hobbyists, would enjoy magic a lot more. And anyone that's listening to me that is in that position where they're scared to do things that they think is too obvious, for me, just go out and try it. Go out and try that trick. Not on your family. Next time you're at a party and someone goes, oh, you do a few tricks, do one of those tricks. And you will see how powerful they are. You don't have to be the best sleight of hand artist. You just do the effect. Mm-hmm. Do the effect to make it entertaining. And remember, it's when you're performing, it's not about you. Just think about making them have a good time, entertaining them, make them laugh, and make them be amazed. That's it.
Okay, so we have banished magician's guilt onto your island, but you have 4 more things. These are the new things, all right? So you've been on your island for a while, Pete. You have been stuck there. Not going to lie, I haven't caught the tan that I thought you would have. You normally tan up quite well. But you're allowed to have a guest with you. So which magical guest? Now, this guest can be from the past. They can be deceased or they can be alive still. If you took one guess, who would you take with you?
I would probably say Tom Mullica. Tom Mullica, I only got to meet him twice. Very, very briefly as well, just sort of hello and a quick chat. Always been a fan of his magic. I think he's one of the funniest, naturally funniest people ever. And it would be a choice of 2. Both, unfortunately, are no longer with us, and that would have been Tom Mullica or Daryl, because I think they were both exceptional magicians. They were both funny in their own way. But if I wanted to go on there with someone that I think would make me laugh nonstop, it would be Tom Mullica.
Yep, both exceptional choices. I think those would both be great. And I think the impact that both of those people, Tom Mullica and Daryl, has had on the magic industry, you know, in 100 years' time, they're both going to be spoken about still. Yeah.
Yeah. And so they should be. The only issue I have is if I took either of those on the island, no one would want to see any of my 8 tricks. So I might as well just leave them at home.
Well, you can get them to perform your 8 tricks. There you go. Good. So we're going to move on to your memory. So obviously you've had several centuries worth of career going on. You have so many different stories that you've told. I mean, we used to do the vlogs, and one of the things that I used to love doing. So before I worked for Alakazam, I would always be around your house at stupid o'clock at night, and you'd just be telling me these crazy stories, and you always used to come up with these stories. So when we did the vlogs, I wanted to put Pete's bedtime stories as a way to document some of these crazy stories, because you've met everyone. You've literally there's no one that I can think of that you haven't met, or your paths have crossed in some way, and you've done some crazy things for theatre and TV. You've done so many amazing things. So the memories that you have are massive. You could probably write a book of stories, just Pete's stories, which I bet would be an amazing book. So if you could have just one of those memories from your career, which memory would you take?
That is really hard.
Playing devil's advocate, there's one that I thought you might have said.
Go on.
Because I can just imagine what you felt like at the moment when the boys were on Britain's Got Talent. During that performance. It was amazing. That would be it. I think the boys' semi-final performance, even though there was 2 of the effects we had to cut out because we were told we had to cut them out, I still think they done an amazing job. But watching them on stage at the audition was, it was something else. I mean, bearing in mind for all of those boys to go on stage in the Palladium, it was the first time Harry had performed publicly at all? Yeah, I think it was, yeah. And even Theo, I remember, because Theo is quite a quiet guy. Yeah. And I only knew him from the shop. He's very, very shy. And when he was on the stage, he spoke so eloquently. He spoke so confidently. It was just shocking. Like, the whole thing was amazing. Yeah. And James Samuel was so confident. Josh was just so slick and smooth. You would never know that some of them were only performing for the first time. They were amazing. Yeah, well, Josh was a member of the YMC, so he was used to performing. James was going out performing. But yeah, you're right. Both Theo and Harry had never performed in public before at all. So just imagine that your first performance is on the stage in front. I wouldn't want to stand up there and be judged. I don't want people to. Can you imagine going to a close-up gig and every table they would sit there for 10 minutes and tell you what they thought of your act? It's like, no, I'll do this. You laugh for a bit. I'm off. Talk about me after. I don't want to hear it. So is that the memory you would take then?
Yeah, I don't think there's any, that whole process, apart from the final, but either the audition or the semi-final, I thought the boys done incredibly. The final, as we said, the whole routine was changed by BGT the day before, so they couldn't do their shizzle. But yeah, that's probably my proudest moment, is to see those boys up there.
Well, I think that's a great memory that you get to relive over and over, but that does take us to your horror story. So as well as all of those good memories, I'm sure, with the fast-paced world of TV behind the scenes, and a lot of the time theatre, in honesty, as well as the close-up gigs that you used to do as well, there has to be some kind of funny or interesting horror story that you could give us.
Well, there were two that stand out to me. One of them is when I was performing Blockhead. For anyone that doesn't know what Blockhead is, I used to take out a 6-inch nail, get it examined, take my shoe off and use the heel of my shoe to hammer that nail into my nose. Now, I remember seeing Spellman do it, and Spellman could literally hammer 3 or 4 nails up one nostril, 2 or 3 up the other nostril. So one day I thought, I'm going to hammer one up the other nostril as well. And as I started to hit it in, I felt the nail start to feel some resistance. So at that point, I had 2 choices: either just take the nail out of that nostril or just give it a little whack. So I gave it a little whack, which weren't great. So I gave it a whack, and then I just felt blood running down my face here. And I gave myself a nosebleed. So that weren't good. And another horror story, I was doing a wedding, and I used to do bill in kiwi a lot. Bill in lemon, bill in kiwi, whatever I fancied doing at the time. And I bought myself a couple of knives to do it. And I found these really nice knives that were foldable and everything, like pen knives, look really nice. But what I did was I gave my father-in-law one to dull down the blade so it wasn't too sharp. It was sharp enough to cut through, but, he would dull it down for me. And one day I went into my close-up case and the knife wasn't there. So I opened the drawer where I had my stuff, saw the knife, grabbed it, put it in my bag with the kiwis and everything else. Went to the wedding, at the table, got the kiwi's on the table, should I say, at the beginning of the routine, borrowed the bill vanishes, get on with my act, now pick up the kiwi at the end, get the knife out. And as I've gone to cut the kiwi, I got the knife that hadn't been dulled down, and it sliced through the kiwi and into my finger. And it was so sharp that it was like, when you get a paper cut, you feel the pain, but you sort of don't see anything until you touch it and the skin goes back a bit, and then you get that sharp pain and the blood start coming out. And so it will be one of those ones, and I think it will be the kiwi, because the nail, even though my nose bled, it stopped bleeding very quickly and there was no pain. Whereas the finger one meant I had to then go and get a plaster on my finger and, So, it will be that one. And it was my own stupidity. I grabbed the knife thinking it was the one that had been dulled down, and it wasn't. Yeah.
Ouch to both of those. Both of them sound horrendous. Okay. So that is your horror story, but you don't have to think about either of those again. We've put them in a little glass bottle, thrown them out to sea. You're never going to see them again. You've got one more thing, so it's the show. So this is either a show or a performance that you wish that you could see again, so it had something substantial for you, or it's a performance that you never got the chance to see that you wish you could have seen live. So which show would you take with you?
Okay, so I am going to say, as an honourable mention, and this is a really recent show, it's on Netflix, and it's called Magic Lover. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It is Justin Willman. It's him doing a stage show. I think Justin Willman is incredible, so funny, so great with the audience. There's not much in the show. As a seasoned magician, there's not a lot that's going to make you go, oh my God, how did he do that? But what you will say is, wow, he done that well. It's just his personality. I will say the ending is a mind blower. That's great. But perfectly picked routines, perfectly structured show, great personality on stage. The moment he walks on stage, you fall in love with him as a performer. I've watched it probably 5 times. I've watched it with friends that have come round. I watched it with Jenny. I watched it with Holly. And everyone was under the same opinion. It's just a great, entertaining show. So, that would be my honourable mention. I think if there was a show that I would like to witness that I never got to see, probably Siegfried and Roy. You know, I would have liked to have seen that big 80s, 70s, 80s glamour. On stage, the big sparkly suits, the tigers, the flamboyance of it all. Yeah, I would have thought that would have been great. I mean, I would have loved to have visited, Vegas in the 70s. Obviously, I wasn't old enough, Jamie, before you say anything. But I'm fascinated by the 70s and things like that, because I think if we look at where we are now, I think it doesn't, I don't know if I've said this to you before, I think it doesn't matter how rich you are now, we've all got the same things. Do you know what I mean? We've all got a car. All right, you're richer, you'll have a better car maybe. But we've all got a mobile phone. There's nothing really that's out of our reach as a normal working person now. Whereas I think in the 70s, life, I think there was, like, if you were very rich, you got access to things like a mobile phone or stuff. And I'd be really interested to experience, like, let's say the Bee Gees lifestyle in the 70s, because I bet it was crazy, just to see it for one day and see, you know, how different life was. Because now life isn't that different for us. I don't think it really matters how much, within reason, it doesn't matter how much you've got. We all experience the same things. But I think back then, it was like, you know, if you were a celeb, then you got access to a different world, you know. It just something that interests me. It sounds a bit weird, but yeah.
No, not at all. I think it's also, you know, in those days, those were the big spectacle pieces that you would have to go and see that person to see, you know. And in the same way that you mentioned, we all have the same things in our day-to-day life. I think magicians are the same. We all have the same things. Whereas back then, people would be saying, "Oh, have you seen Siegfried and Roy with the tiger? How they? You're only going to be able to go and see that with them." You know, David Copperfield, when he used to do flying. Have you seen David Copperfield fly? That was unique to him. Cyril, when he used to just walk around the streets and take hamburgers out of signs. Those are the people. Those were the real pioneers, I think. And they're probably the last of their kind, really, who really challenged magic as an industry and really tried to make it stand out and make it unique and make it, you know, one of a kind.
Yeah, just an honourable mention. I will say as well, David Copperfield, when he was touring, I would have loved, I never got to see that. He toured over here. I think he did Earl's Court or something. I would have loved to have been there for that as well, you know, to Copperfield. I grew up watching his specials, and even a few years ago, me, Jenny, Holly and Harry went out to Vegas. We went to see the Copperfield show. I bought his DVD while we were there, and I remember taking Harry football training. So he's out football training. I'm sitting in the car and I've put the DVD on and I was watching it, and it gave me goosebumps. Gave me absolute goosebumps to watch it, you know, and that really brought back the feeling of magic for me, watching Copperfield again.
And even some of the effects that Copperfield did, things like misled and, the floating rose, all of those things are still things that, they got popular amongst magicians because he performed them. They were underground hits before them, but he made them cool. So let's go back over your choices. These are your substitutions. You went for the Sophie trick, Sharpie Through Card. You changed your book out for one of Bob Cassidy's, and your banishment was Magician's Guilt. Your guess was Tom Mullica. Your memory was 4MG on Britain's Got Talent. Your horror story was the knife through kiwi, 3-finger, and your show was Siegfried and Roy. I think, in terms of an SOS, you're going to have a good time on that island now. Yeah,
100%. Well, thank you for having me back on, Jamie.
Thank you for being stuck on the island for 2 years.
That's all right. Nothing else to do.
And hopefully this will be an interesting addition to the podcast. I think it's nice to have those extra options, but also just to see if people really did stick to those lists. Like you said, some of the tricks you haven't performed for a really long time, and then other things come up and, they make you think, why didn't I put that in?
Yeah. 8's very hard. It's very hard to limit it down to 8 because there are so many good tricks. And, I've chosen a few there that I perform regularly and taken stuff out that I don't. But like I said, I did find my Predator the other day, so I'm going to relook at it. I know I taught Steve Della to do it, and he says it's still, part of his everyday routine or whatever. So I'm actually going to call Steve Della and get him to reteach it to me now with all the tips I taught him that I've forgotten.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Pete. And of course, thank you all for listening. We'll be back again next week. Now, don't forget, we've also got Stranded with a Stranger back. So we want to do at least one of these a month. So please do send in your lists. Send in your list of 8 tricks, 1 banishment, 1 book, and 1 non-magic item to sales@alakazam.co.uk. Please include a little bit about you, just to let us know who you are and a little bit of your past. And of course, tell us why those choices. It's not necessarily the tricks that we're interested in, it's why you were doing those tricks and whilst you were making those suggestions. So we're going to be back next week with another version of this. But until then, have a great week. Goodbye.
Hi, Peter Nardi here, and I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. I just wanted to let you know that Alakazam have their own app. You can download it from the App Store or the Google Play Store. By downloading the app, it will make your shopping experience even slicker at Alakazam. You'll also get exclusive in-app offers and in-app live streams. So go download it now, and we'll see you on the next podcast.